All right. Well, let's get started in the interest of time and out of respect for those that showed up right at the top of the hour. Let's uh, let's get started here. So we're going to be talking today about how to best prepare for secure AI adoption, and with that, I'll we'll get right into it. Uh, we today you've got myself, Mike Davies, the business development manager for Modern Work Security, as well as Copilot expert, covering mostly the United States, but also talking to a lot of our Canadian partners as well. And we've got Roddy here with me. Very thankful that he's joined our technical fellow for a cybersecurity standpoint.
Yeah,
So,
glad to be here. It's
yeah,
always a fun topic. It's always engaging, and AI being being in the mainstream, being talked about a lot, right? Like the topic that
yeah.
comes up a lot is a lot around security, so it's good to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for today's agenda, we have the security risks that are more prevalent in the context of AI. We have the best solutions that you can put in place. We're going to talk about the Microsoft products and features that you can take advantage of, and then framing that conversation for your customers and talking about these security products when it comes to AI adoption. And then finally, we're going to talk about all of the promotions to make this as low cost and as easy and as profitable for all of you as possible. So that's what we're going to be going through today. We've got a good packed agenda here. Uh, We'd love to hear questions from you. If you've got questions, raise your hand. We're happy to answer them. There will be a Q&A at the end. And I believe the Q&A in the webinar is available as well if you want to type them in if you're feeling shy. We will send the slides, and then all the resources that we reference will be discussed or will be sent out and shared afterwards. With that, I will pass it over to Roddy to go through the security concerns when it comes to AI.
Awesome, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. So as we kind of talked about it and kind of gave some hits on earlier, right? Like when we start talking about adopting AI, right? So this is before we apply our first license. This is before we even start talking about like business use cases. We have to understand the security concerns around AI, right? So when we're talking with partners out there and we're asking them, what's going on? What are your concerns? What are your clients' concerns whenever they're talking about AI? Because we like to talk about, all the great things you can do with AI from generating documents, taking teams meetings and making them more concise, right? But along with adopting new technology always comes security concerns, right? So data leakage being the first one, right? So what does Copilot do with my data? How do I ensure that users don't inadvertently send that data outside to insecure environments, right? Or unpotentially send sensitive information to clients, things like internal payroll or potential bad data out to clients, right? Second thing being end user education, making sure that people understand, right? What can AI do? What can't it do? What ways can it help with their productivity? What business use cases, right? Can AI be used for? And the last one is AI abuse, right? So when I was at DEF CON over the summer, there was a lot of discussion around like, all right, if I get access to like a Copilot instance, like what can I do with it, right? So understanding what we look for inside of AI use, how do we best protect that so that there is no malicious use of AI, especially from tenants that get compromised, and how do we help best secure those environments when we introduce AI into it? So the whole point of this whole conversation, why Mike's here too, is if you're adopting Copilot, there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of security inside of Office 365 that you can implement. And Mike, being the expert that he is in it, he'll go over that in a little bit. But generally, I like to talk about security best practices. So next slide, Mike. So when we talk about what we can do with and what kind of like methodology we can use when we're adopting security for AI, specifically Copilot. There's always base tenant security that we can go over, right? So understanding cybersecurity frameworks, right? If you're out there using CIS controls or NIST or ISO or any of the other frameworks, like how do we adopt that framework into our tenant? And how do we start adding controls associated with those frameworks into our tenant, right? So if you're doing things like asset inventory, or you're trying to figure out how we do like least privilege access, et cetera, like frameworks help us understand security from a more methodical approach. So a lot of the same controls that you would put into your everyday environments, your workstations, your servers, your network switches, whatever, right? You can adopt those controls into your tenant as well. The next one we do is always try to follow your Microsoft security score, right? Microsoft will give you recommendations based on Microsoft best practices or things you should be looking out for. Always make sure you have MFA set up for your tenant as well. I know we've been preaching that for years, but making sure that you're putting things like FIDO keys or more phishing resistant MFA on your admin accounts, and making sure that it's enforced through things like conditional access policies, which Mike will go over in a little bit. Understanding how conditional access policies, we can do things like ensure that certain criteria are met before access is granted into the tenant. Making sure if you have like Intune, making sure that there are certain criteria that endpoints that people log in from meet certain security controls or like certain risks. I know I think it's in Azure. Mike's going to correct me on this probably, but I think it's Azure or Intra P2 licensing, right? Like you can use Intune to do risk-based conditional access policies, right? Where you can start to introduce specific risk considerations before authentication happens. And the last thing
it's
is
a pretty powerful tool.
Like, I think that's the biggest struggle when I talk with MSPs, when we're doing road shows, when we're doing like boot camps, like we're doing in May, right? Is it's like, what's the best thing you can use to help like protect the tenant from like just everyday phishing, everyday like password attacks or leak credentials, like conditional access policies and Intune policies, right? Like those two things are like magical. And like they're difficult to understand. Sometimes they can be tricky in the way you implement them. So understanding those thoroughly. And the last thing is always make sure you have some kind of third-party monitoring involved. If you have a SOC that can monitor Office 365, or I'm going to do a plug for Office Protect from Sherweb in here. If you're using Office Protect, like having some kind of ability to monitor things like suspicious logins, or the ability to track like MFA usage, or when there's changes to policies, etc. So next slide, Mike. Yeah. So when we talked about like, okay, so anytime we set up a tenant, here's some security that we should put in place. The next thing is like, what's specific to Copilot, right? So what are security functions that Microsoft has built into Copilot whenever you deploy it inside of a tenant? So first thing is your security boundary. So Copilot respects your tenant security boundary. So data won't leak tenant to tenant just from the way that Copilot's set up. It will respect things like your security groups, permission access, etc. It does respect your sensitivity tags. So if you're using Purview or any other kind of DLP inside of Office 365, Copilot will respect those tags. So if you have, let's say, social security numbers that you store for employees can't be sent outside the tenant, you tag those documents specifically, you set up Purview rules or other DLP rules. Copilot ensures that those rules are respected before information leaves your boundaries. Fourth thing, and this is, some people know about this and some people don't, so I like to touch on it. So restricted SharePoint search, which was released about a year ago for Copilot. So the ability, say you have your SharePoint set up between different sites. So you may have a payroll, an HR, a legal, an operations, an IT, like different SharePoint sites. You can blacklist certain SharePoint sites from having Copilot produce results from searches. So let's say you never want anything in the payroll SharePoint site to be referenced whenever Copilot produces results. You can throw that into the SharePoint search blacklist, and it won't ever show up. That is, I think still off by default, so you have to go turn that on. It should be available to every tenant, I think, by now, right? I think it started rolling out last April, so it should be fairly available.
Yeah, it is available. It does take some minor configuration. It's not just a GUI click on this site or that site, or turn off that site or this site. Does take some minor configuration, but it's about 15-20 minutes worth of work to do it. This is a great tool for not letting the mess of a customer's data stop a AI initiative. So if you've got a customer that's really worried about a specific site or document library, and they're letting that hold them back from leveraging Copilot or using AI, restricted SharePoint search is the tool that's going to give you the ability to proceed with that rollout, continue to drive forward that AI conversation while they clean up the data that they need to clean up, and you've helped them with that.
Right. Thanks, Mike. And then the last part is, Microsoft has made a commitment to responsible AI governance, making sure that you can't do or perform illegal actions using Copilot or unethical actions using Copilot. So they don't always release exactly what you can or cannot do with Copilot because they don't want people getting around it. But there are some restrictions in place to make sure that you don't use it in an unethical or illegal manner for sure. Next slide, Mike. And then for anybody who wants just a general like, hey, here's a best practices checklist. My recommendation, and this is subjective, right? But if you're not using Business Premium at the minimum, I always recommend you do it because with Business Premium, and Mike, you're gonna be like, this is all the functionality you get with Business Premium, like and for the price, like it's for me, whenever I was at our MSP, like it was a no-brainer, right? You get access to conditional access policies, you get Azure P1 license, you get the Defender products, right? You get like a base version of Purview or DLP, right? Like there's a lot that comes inside of Business Premium that I think like from a basic standpoint, I think you need before you adopt Copilot. And we can get into the specifics of like, E5 licensing, where you do things like in-user behavior analytics and everything else, right? Like that some companies may need depending on how much regulatory compliance or how much security or risk appetite they have. And the second thing I want to touch on here is business use cases. So one of the things we always recommend, right, if you want strong AI adoption, right, this goes beyond just security, but like, how do I make sure that I'm going through all this work, I'm prepping a tenant, I'm getting this client ready, they finally pull the trigger and buying a license, but then they do like nothing with it, they don't see the value in it. So building use cases around it, making sure that they understand like what's the return on investment in this, how does this speed up my productivity, how does this increase my productivity, how does this make my day-to-day life easier. And I always use the example of Teams because I use Copilot extensively in Teams. It's like, you ever had Mike, you have those meetings where you're like, this meeting should have been an email. Like, Copilot does that for you to digest the meeting. Says like, all right, here's the key takeaways. Here's who spoke when. Here's like tasks that were talked about and who's assigned to it. So like, I know like they're getting to a point where you can have like an avatar in a Teams meeting where you don't really have to join, and then like, hey, you get just the digest. So create those business use cases. Like, how does this affect, maybe the ability to process like market analytics or sales data or whatever you have. So if you're using Dynamics or if you have like Power BI, like the amount of data that you can feed into it, and the amount that Copilot can access, like start to build those business use cases, especially around Microsoft products. And then the last thing I want to touch on is a center of excellence. So Microsoft recommends you create like an education center. The education center helps dispel like FUD around Copilot and AI, but also helps your clients or your visitors to your center of excellence understand like what can AI do for them, right? So it helps drive their adoption, kind of puts you as like the expert or the most knowledgeable person around AI and helps them drive business to you, right? So a couple of items here, a couple of checklist items just to go over base security. But I think Mike, you're next. You're not next to go over the fine details of security inside of Office 365.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'll add to that list, and actually usually comes out of a center of excellence, is kind of that group that's managing the AI within your customers' environment. So your actual customers, is coming away with an AI use policy is really important, so that you have some kind of document that defines how your customers' employees are interacting with AI. We can as MSPs set all of the IT parameters and what they physically can and cannot do, restrictions, but it's also good to encourage your customers to come up with an AI use policy, when it should be used, what tools should be used, so on and so forth.
I also add too, if you don't have a data retention policy too, now's a good time to look at one and start using one, because any kind of AI system, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. If you're putting bad data into it, you're not going to get the best results out of it. So understanding, hey, what data is too old to keep? What data should I start cleaning out? Especially when we start talking about incident response, which some of the fun stuff I used to do. You can limit the impact of an incident, right? If you have good data retention policies, make sure you're not keeping data forever. Because we've all had those clients, right? They keep data because they're like, oh, I don't want to get rid of it because I might need it
Yeah.
one day, but they don't have a real good use for it. So putting a good data retention policy in place, saying like, all right, what's my regulatory needs? What is my business use for it? And then saying anything that falls outside of the scope, we start getting rid of. And like I tell you, it's a pain sometimes to get clients to start doing it, but once they get in the routine of cleaning up old data, like, oh, I love it. It's fantastic. But really important
Yeah.
in terms of AI and making sure that all the data you're feeding it and all the data that's processing and learning from is good data.
Yeah, of course. You don't want it referencing an HR document from 20 years ago that's still sitting on a shared drive or SharePoint site somewhere, and it's feeding bad information to employees.
For sure.
All right, so let's get into some of the details of how the security works. So there is the pillars, as Roddy mentioned, in terms of security, compliance, privacy, and responsible AI. This is how Microsoft organizes its approach to securing AI within each tenant. And if we dig a little deeper into the three that you have control over, not including the responsible AI portion, because Microsoft's got that all handled, is looking at the security portion. So some of the things that you can do prior to deploying AI and Copilot within your customer's environment is ensuring that you've got permissions that are clean and reviewed on a regular basis. So that's something that we get questions a lot about is, will everybody have access to whatever they want through AI? No, they'll have access to what they are given permission for, whether that's right or wrong. So you want to make sure that you do a review with your customers. Roddy talked about the persistent label inheritance. So Microsoft respecting your DLP policies, that's definitely a big one. And then another one is ensuring that you've got the control over your data locations, making sure that you've got control over your data. So that a lot of that from a privacy standpoint is an oversight perspective, and being able to review that with purview. So data becomes kind of the new battleground and the new thing that you need to secure. And we're going to get into that, but there's kind of 4 different areas in which Microsoft recommends you leveraging their security tool sets to prepare a client for AI.
Yeah, and especially around permissions, right? So permission creep is a huge one, right? Like people change jobs or internal jobs, right, or internal roles. Sometimes one time's permission is given to somebody and then it becomes permanent because no one goes back and revokes those permissions. You have vendor access sometimes that no one ever goes back and reviews and revokes, and that could give you some pretty nasty sprawl there. So going through that, and just reviewing it, sometimes it's a massive undertaking at first, but once you get through it the first time and you do some maintenance on it, it becomes a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. There's plenty of ways to do that. When we look at the overprivileged access that users might have, this is something that you can review with Entra. So with an Entra P2 license, so in that E5 space or with an Entra P2 add-on license, you've got the ability to do automated access reviews. So you can set up a recurring motion in which it's going to generate access logs of who has access to what, put it in a digestible report for yourselves or your customers, whoever you want to send it to, and have that be a repeatable action that you take with your customers to ensure that their permission sets look correct. Because I know I was at an MSP as well, and one of the things that our team would do on a consistent basis was use an example employee to replicate their permission sets when onboarding a new employee. But we weren't evaluating that original person to see if they had been given access to something they probably shouldn't have along the way. So that's something that you then kind of replicate that issue or error down to all of the new people. It's something that you'd want to do through access reviews, which is a function of Entra ID.
Yeah, I tell you another funny anecdote. So we had a chemical company that we were doing work for, and we were going through their audit, and we were like, "Hey, we haven't checked door access controls in a while." So what we found out was they were cloning the same badge, like door access badge, from an employee who had access to all the doors. So
Okay.
that employee hadn't been there for 4 years, and they were still using that same employee's access badge. So everybody was tagged. They'd go through the gates, the doors, access to the actual chemical storage, whatever. It was all the same employee. So no one was going back and reviewing
Oh,
whether
it
or
just
not permissions. It was just, I was like, who is this person? Like, person hasn't worked here in 4 years. But like going back and reviewing, like, hey, what are we doing with regards to like basic permissions? What's the process we go through
yeah.
to do like the change management around permissions, and making sure that we do an actual permissions review as well is important, because it does creep, and if no one's watching it, it gets turns into a bit of a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one that you mentioned that relates to identity is those conditional access policies. So, looking at conditional access policies, there are a lot of different versions of that you can put forward. You have the kind of standard ones that you'll see, which is ensuring that MFA is required for all users, or denying or only allowing specific countries to be able to gain access to resources. And these are great. I recommend going forward with either a risk-based conditional access policy if you've got that Entra P2 license, which is going to be your best level of security, where Microsoft's using its analysis to identify who's a risky user, who isn't, and then denying access if they've seen something suspicious happen on that account, which is going to save you guys lots of headaches down the road. On top of that, the other one is using the device state. So if you've got registered devices only, so if you have Intune registered devices, you can lock it down with conditional access policies to say only users that are accessing it from a registered device with Intune are able to get access to our company resources. So that could be both company and BYOD registered devices.
Yeah, you start to move more towards zero trust, right? Or you're saying, all right, I'm only going to trust the devices that I know, and any other devices I don't know, we have to go through an approval process to then make them become trusted devices. But if you don't trust them, they shouldn't be accessing anything inside of my tenant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it even goes like with conditional access policies. If you're using like a SASE product, right, where you have a cloud gateway and all of my devices, especially my remote devices, are going to be coming in through a specific IP address, you can start to lock down access to your tenant through those specific IP addresses or trusted IP addresses, and you start to really narrow down, your attack surface in Office 365.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the challenges I found as an MSP was dealing with my customers' willingness to allow their employees to access stuff on personal devices with no oversight at all into the state of those devices. And they would say, just go right ahead. People can use their cell phones in any manner they choose fit. Doesn't need to have a password on it. And this is where Intune can really help.
Yeah, it's all fun and games. Someone just walks off with their device. We had that. They decide they're going to self-terminate, is what we would call it. They would just walk out out with whatever they had on their phones, emails, sensitive documents, whatever, and just walk out the door with it. It's happens a very common occurrence.
Yeah, and so having the ability to define what people have access to or not from a work perspective is really important, deciding what applications they have and then how they can interact. So on a personal device level, ensuring that they can't download documents onto the phone or onto a personal device. All of that can be defined with Intune, and is really important when information's so easily accessible and customizable with Copilot. So you want to make sure that you're supercharging your employees with Copilot, you want to be able to say you're locking them down as well to ensure that you've got control, wipe a device if it's lost or disconnected. Moving to the data side, so this is where we've got the new kind of battleground, as I'm calling it, as understanding what security measures you need to put in place for your data sets. So nothing is going to be defined in most environments with sensitivity labels. I'm not seeing this as a well-used product, and this is something that's really important when it comes to Copilot. Copilot is going to be generating new content. It's going to be leveraging information, and it's going to be looking for whether or not that's deemed as confidential, internal use only, for public consumption, and applying the same policies to the content that it's sourced from. So with that, you want to make sure that you've got the ability to set up data loss prevention policies, sensitivity labels, and those retention labels that Roddy was talking about.
Yep,
this is you get these functions within the business premium space with the version of Microsoft Purview. There's a lot that you can do with the E5 version. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, I have customers that have 20 years worth of data, and there's no way they're going to comb through it all and mark things off and say this is sensitive and this isn't. Like, it's just not going to happen. This would be a monumental task. Well, with the E5 or E5 compliance bundle, you get the ability to automatically assess and apply sensitivity labels from a either with custom identifiers or with the kind of usual identifiers of credit card information, PII, social insurance numbers, anything that is kind of that personal identifiable information. It can automatically assign the sensitivity labels that are required. Moving on to kind of the last portion of it, before we kind of put it all together, is the discovery and use of AI apps. So if you haven't sold Copilot to your customer today, or you're unsure whether or not they are utilizing AI, we have all the data to back it up from Microsoft, from lots of different sources, saying that there are about 60 to 70% of users that are either using AI in their work life or they're using it in their personal life in some regard.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you don't think they're using third-party AI to parse documents or to create documents or to put business information out there, they are. Like, I know they are. I've seen the news articles. I've seen the case studies around it. Like, they're 100% putting sensitive information into public AI systems for sure.
Yeah, and if there's one thing you can tell your customers today is stop using the ChatGPT, the free versions of all of these external tools, and start leveraging the Copilot chat free version, because this is going to bring those enterprise data security features that you get with the paid version to the free version. So they should be using Copilot chat instead of ChatGPT. This is going to give you the same total controls that you have, the same security policies that you have configured, and ensuring that that data isn't being leveraged for foundational model training. With the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps toolset, you have the ability to scan what's being used across the organization and determine what they're using, assess the risk of it, and then either approve or block access to that. So this comes back to the AI use policy that I'm urging you to help your customers create. This is where you can actually enforce it. So saying, we don't want people using ChatGPT for business data. Well, here's how you go and block that website or block that application from your users. So being able to discover that and then going and blocking it, you can do this through Defender for Cloud Apps. It's a really powerful tool. And by deploying it, you can also go and show your customer, hey, your employees are using AI today, and here's the tools they're using. So it's better to have control over it and know about it and shape the way that they're using it than turning a blind eye to. So this is where we bring it all together. This becomes a really powerful tool set at your disposal to get your customers ready for AI adoption. These policies are going to be able to govern how and when they access it, what they can utilize it for in a secure manner, and give your customers and the executives there peace of mind that they're going to be using AI in a responsible way when it comes to their business data. So we're going to move to how do you talk to your customers about it, and what can you do to get kind of further the conversation, and where are the opportunities for you as MSPs? So I'll pass it back to you, Roddy.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So I know from my time in the MSP space, right, that you're selling a license isn't going to be what like brings the bacon home. That's not what's going to pay for the family vacation. It's what I like to call it's like the wraparound services, or the supporting services, or the consulting services around that, right? So that's where the real opportunity is. The real opportunity when you're talking with clients for your own, like that benefits your own MSP, isn't in the selling of the license, right? Like it's not going to do it. So doing things like having a readiness project around Copilot. So putting the steps together into some kind of like project document of here's the steps we take to secure a tenant. Here's how much time it takes. So you have like this readiness project to put in place. Are we doing DLP? Are we increasing security? Are we setting up Intune? Are we doing more conditional access policies? Like what are we doing? Looking at doing education around it. So are we doing educational workshops? How are we talking with the client to make sure everyone's on the same page about understanding what AI is? Because to a lot of people, it's a concept, it's a black box. You put words into it and it spits out an answer for you. They don't understand the full context of like, can I use it to review like data analytics, or can I use it to create PowerPoints for me, or create Excel formulas, right? Like they don't understand, I hate to say it, like, they don't know what they don't know. And it's your job as the MSP to educate them on it. Looking at ways we can migrate data to Office 365 to better utilize Copilot. So if there's no direct plugin or data connection for Copilot for like line of business applications, do we move that data to like the Dynamics or to some kind of CRM that supports it, or do we plug like a Power BI plugin into a certain data set, right? So we have access to it. And the thing I think a lot of MSPs, right, can make a good bit is like, how do we show value in what we're doing, right? So that's through the reporting, your regular QBR process, add, to it, what AI functions have we adopted, and where are we seeing productivity, and where's the return on investment in the money that I'm spending on it? Because again, it's still a line item, right, on businesses. Like I'm paying X amount of dollars per year for Copilot licenses, but is it actually working for me? Or we spent all this money to get ready for AI adoption, and I don't see the value in it. And so you start to get those questions. So you want to be on the forefront of that by showing what we're doing. I always recommend having some kind of AI steering committee, right? It can be a part of the IT steering committee if you have one. So you can talk about what's working, what's not working, where they have hangups in their business processes where maybe AI can help out, right? And so you help drive that value. Does drive your own price up too in that process. So you're hopefully making more money, but you're driving like an intrinsic value in what you do, and not like a direct value that you can track on like on a sheet, right? On a balance sheet. So you're showing that you're working ahead of it. You're proactive. You're giving them the data, the business information. You're showing them the drivers. You're giving them the return on investment ahead of time without them asking. So they don't. When it comes down for renewal time, they're not asking questions about why they're paying so much or why they're paying this. Right? That should be a no-brainer for them by the time renewal comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty powerful set of examples there. And to put it in a slightly different kind of visual, if you will, is the kind of customer journey and partner journey. And you can see here, as you're going along the lines, we've talked today a lot about that assess and prepare section and getting ready for Copilot. And that's a great step. And that's where you're going to be talking about security, getting their data into the right place. And then the next step that you'd be looking at is pilot projects. So understanding those use cases that are going to be really impactful and show the ROI. And then you've got to move into how do they adopt, use it, how do you train them? And then that extend portion that Roddy touched on is how do you bring in other data sets to make the impact even greater. So it is excellent to be able to summarize a meeting instantly, get action items coming out of it. Like for a $30 license, I'm making my money back on that one after I've attended one meeting. So that I have to send a summary for. Like I've made my money back on that one. So that's great. But if I can inject as an MSP, if I could say, bring in my IT documentation tool and my ticket data to have a Copilot agent analyze tickets and tell me the last time this ticket was solved and what actions were taken and what I need to be concerned about from a documentation standpoint, well, now that's a tremendous value. Like that is something that I can't live without. So that's what you can do for your customers is figure out what those use cases are that they'll never even think about why they want to get rid of Copilot once they've got something like that.
And like even going so far as like if you're a heavy security shop that's inside of Microsoft, Copilot for security, right? Where you're, I hated writing KQL statements. Like I absolutely hate it. Especially since I was trained in SQL and like there's some crossover, but like there's some nuance to it. I mean, now you go to Security Copilot and say, hey, write me a KQL statement that looks for this, and it'll be like, here you go, and you verify it because you want to make sure it's good code, and then you pop it into Azure Sentinel or whatever you're using for analytics, and it pulls all your data that you need. No more sitting there toying around with a KQL statement, trying to figure out if it's pulling the right data in or whatever, right? You can test, refine, and do it in minutes as opposed to an hour. So if you do an incident response and you have to go create a KQL statement, hopefully you have some that are in your repository that's used for easy access and easy for your SOC analyst to use. But like if you have to create one, there's a human resource involved in that. It's taking up time and money. So you weigh your cost of, hey, how much time am I taking doing manual things in security versus letting Copilot handle some of the more tedious functions that I don't like. And it's not just about time and money. What do you hate to do, right? Like, well, we were doing automation at MSP. We had two things. What's taking up the most time? All right, because like new user onboardings, new workstation preps, whatever. And like, what do you guys hate to do? What's the quality of life improvements we can do for you guys? Password resets. They're quick, but like I hate doing 20 of them in a day if I don't have to. So like you look at both those things. What's taking up time and money, and then what's quality of life improvements that we can do with AI. And I think if you can find the right balance for that for a client, like what are they looking for exactly? Again, you give them direct value. That's the return on investment. That's the time and money saved. And you give them intrinsic value. And that's like, how do they feel? Do they feel like things are easier? And you can do that through quality of life improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. And that fits nicely into that advisory bucket. When your customer's coming and saying, I don't know what AI can do for me, the questions Roddy just asked are the ones to ask your customer. And that'll get you towards the what can AI do for me conversation. This is service bundles that we've or a service bundle that we looked at as kind of a minimum. If I needed an example of what can I do from a service bundle perspective, we put it in here. One thing I'll call out, the remediation, as you know, should definitely not be included in whatever service bundle you put out as a initial service bundle to your customers when it comes to AI. Obviously, any remediation activities you're going to put above and beyond your Copilot scope, but those assessments, those engagements, business value workshops. These are all ideas of things that you can put together as an offering to bundle for your partner or for your customers and put in front of them as something that they can purchase from you. I'll move on to some of the promotions and the things that you have at your disposal right now to make some of these conversations a little bit easier. So until June 30th, we have a 15% discount on net new subscriptions of Microsoft E3 on the annual subscription or annual subscription monthly pay option. So this is a great way to move them forward. If they've got the Office E3 licenses, this is a great opportunity to leverage this to get them over to Microsoft E3 with some of those security feature sets that are going to be necessary. We've got the same thing with E5. So if you're looking to get them into that top of the line SKU, you've got the same 15% discount on new E5 SKUs for that tenant. And this is going to be one where if they want that automated data labeling or they want risk-based conditional access policies to adhere to whatever compliance requirements they have, now's a great time to talk to them about that. That's also available until June 30th. We also have the E5 compliance mini bundle offer. So this is on a 50% discount. So this is getting the purview and compliance set, so information protection, insider risk management, and adding that to an E3 SKU to be able to take advantage of the functionality that you need. So this mini bundle gives you all of that compliance and governance aspect and won't have the same cost footprint as a full Microsoft E5 license. Again, that's a 50% discount and can be applied retroactively to customers that have purchased Microsoft Copilot but don't have the E5 compliance, which is really great. And then lastly, this one just got announced like 2 days ago, is the extension of the Copilot promotion. So this is a 15% discount on Copilot when you're buying 10 or more licenses. So this is all new subscriptions that you're adding 10 or more licenses. You're going to have the ability to get a 15% discount on Copilot annual subscriptions. And so with this, you've got the ability to get them in at a lower price point. That will go right through the term of the subscription for the annual subscription, which is really great. All right. We've got our Q&A. So if we've got any questions, happy to take them here. I know we've had a little bit in the chat, but if you've got anything in the Q&A, you can either throw your hand up or put it in to the Q&A section here, and we'll take a stab at it.
Yeah, this is the part of the program we like to call Stump the Chump. So if you have a question, you can. There was a question in chat, and I kind of put an answer to it. So I didn't know. Is this the Bob Miller? Is this my neighbor from Lafayette, or is this a different Bob Miller? So there is a Bob Miller that lives not far down the street from me, who's a cybersecurity expert, runs IR games. He said you put the Bob.
That is Bob. There you go.
I'm gonna give a plug while Bob's here for Bob's IR games that he does. So it's a free incident response tabletop exercise. It's fantastic. It is it will cause you panic while you're doing it. So it's fantastastic, free to the community. So
awesome.
Let's see. Rick asked, "Can we get a copy of your presentation?" Of course, always.
Yes, absolutely.
And what AI trends should businesses be preparing for in the next 2 to 3 years? 2 to 3 years? I'm worried about what's coming out in the next 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
I mean, right now, I'd say like agentic AI and agentic AI sprawl is my concern. So agentic AI, like giving most of the time, like, all right, AI sits there waiting for you to do something, like giving it a prompt or telling it to record and transcribe a Teams chat or whatever. Agentic AI is a little bit different, and I kind of, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong because I am not the expert here, but like more akin to like Outlook rules, right? Where you say, wait for this specific thing to happen and then do an action, right? Or like, so agentic AI then becomes like a mini, I hate to use the word mini butler or like mini servant that just sits there and looks at the data and or looks at a certain thing. When a trigger happens, it's going to perform an action and it learns and it grows and figures out what's the best way to perform that action for you. Now, you do it one time, that's fine. If you got a user who now has 1,000 agents that they're looking at different data, like how do you control that? How do you process that? How do you educate them? How do you control that? Like that's a whole that's a lot of places are moving that. You'll hear agentic AI talked about a lot more. Mike, thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. That's something that is coming soon for Copilot. So you've got they're calling them autonomous agents. So you create an agent that performs a specific task, and right now the person has to be the trigger of that. Put this document in, and it will do this specific function. What's coming down the road is I receive an email or there's this trigger that doesn't involve an employee that then sets off in motion a little bit of automation that's got AI wrapped around it. And that's coming down the road. Like that's going to be within the next 3 to 6 months. That'll be a live GA function. And that's where things are going to get a little crazy, where we're going to see when people say, hey, I might be losing my job to AI, that's where it's going to start taking over entire business processes. So that's the one where I had a company that I worked with when I was at an MSP that they had a job function of 2 employees that were receiving emails, and a large portion of their job was taking the files that got sent to them and saving them into a shared drive and then copying the email content and putting it somewhere else. And all of that is inefficient, and those people could be doing things with their day that are not copying and pasting files across locations. So those are things that you'll likely see coming down the road.
Yeah, I think too. You see more human tech. Like you already see the AI videos, the quality that's come out of them in the last year, right? Like I think the one I found the funniest was like they finally taught The Rock how to eat spaghetti, because he used to have that video of The Rock like trying to eat spaghetti and his fingers would turn into spaghetti. Like AI couldn't figure it out. Well, those videos are like clearer now. Like they're a lot harder to distinguish between what's real, what's fake. You'll see AI influencers a lot more. Like that's my biggest concern with regards to AI is like what's going to be real language, because you can read it. Like you see a LinkedIn post that's written by AI and you can kind of tell, right? It's written a specific way, the wording they use, like the AI likes to use dashes a lot more than most humans use in the way they write. It likes to put 3 things. So it says like, AI is great. It can reduce labor and increase productivity and make you happy. Like it uses 3 things, right, all the time, because that's like the common way. It's the most people respond better to like when there's 3 things that it can give you, right? That's going to change. So it'll be hard. I think trying to differentiate between human written and AI written language is going to be a lot. It'll be a lot harder very soon. And again, I'm not on the forefront of like what AI is doing, but it's it's getting there. It's getting there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the next 2 to 3 years, businesses 100% like the use of AI, and again, AI is going to be in everything. It's going to be the responsibility of the MSPs to like guide that process of where they adopt AI, managing all the different AI, right? Because I can tell you in the legal world, right, like being able to parse through tons of court documents and other legal matters, right? Like AI is a godsend in that area. You don't have to go manually read or paid LexisNexis to have synopses of legal documents. No, like I can have AI. Like they made their bread and butter on stuff like that. Like but having AI be able to read through that document and give you the synopsis of it to see if it's a relevant document that then you can go and read through and understand, right? Like each line of business application I feel is going to have their own version of AI, and you have to be able to manage how they use all those different AIs and where that data goes, how it flows in and outside the application, how it interacts with it, how do they use that data or responses? Does it use to retrain the system? Like you're gonna have to go in and figure all that to help clients better manage
Yeah.
it.
Yep. And taking kind of the long view look, we're still in the sprawl of AI tools, and everybody's coming out with their own AI agent. Like every IT or every software vendor now has an AI agent or a chatbot or something. And there's a lot of sprawl that we're seeing across the marketplace. There will be at some point some kind of consolidation of that.
Yeah.
Microsoft, I'll say, is leveraging the OpenAI model right now, and they are for the immediate or intermediate term married to OpenAI and leveraging their model, but they haven't gone and tried to develop their own internal model that they're then long term married to. So they've got the ability to kind of pivot and move with the market and where it's developing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just gonna become ubiquitous. I always liken it to like cloud adoption, right? Whenever the cloud came out, right? Like there was a ton of services out there.
Yeah.
Now it's like if you're not using Azure, you're not using AWS, you're not using like GCP or whatever, Google's platform. Like what else is out there? It's consolidated. Some have folded or been bought out. I mean, there's still a handful out there. That's I'd say more boutique style, right?
Sure.
But same thing with AI, right? There's a lot of AI startups. There's a lot, but they're going to get gobbled up. And you'll have big players, right? You'll have your Groks and your Gemini? I was about to call it Bard, right? Like I say Google Bard, but Google Gemini. You got your Copilots, yeah. So all those are gonna get gobbled up. Same thing, we see it across as the space matures, right? You'll have more mature options, but you'll have less of them.
Exactly. All right, I'll kind of take us home here. So we've got some key takeaways: is understanding the risks when it comes to Copilot and adopting AI, being able to offer assessments and products that are going to help mitigate these risks with the Microsoft suite, and then showcasing the value to your customer and the need for them to have a strong security posture when it comes to AI. So those are the real takeaways. We do have some resources. We've got some roadshows coming up. So we've got the security roadshow. Roddy, I know you're going to be at that one in Toronto on May 27th and 28th that we've got coming up. And then I'm going to be at the Copilot roadshows in Washington, Chicago, and New York. So that's coming up May 20th, 22nd, and the 27th. So those are coming up. If you are in or around those areas, we would love to see you. That's going to be a full day view of not just security, but also how do you sell it, how do you package it, learning all of the newest things that are coming out for Copilot, and how you go to market with it. So that's going to be a great roadshow that we're doing there. And then business premium training. So on May 8th, we are going to be sending this out to our partner base, is a level up training from a technical standpoint on business premium, how it's valuable, why you want to move your customers from standard to business premium. So that's going to be a great training session that we're going to be hosting. And then last but not least, we have the playbook, your guide for selling secure AI. So you will be able to get these slides, click on that link, and be able to get to that guide that's going to take you through in detail all of the things we talked about from a Microsoft perspective today. With that, I thank everyone for coming, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Yep. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.